Welcome to the ThunderCast, your martial athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. Follow us on Twitter, ThunderCast_pod. The links to all of our social medias are in the descriptions to all of our episodes, so go click the links and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcasting network. Share the links with your friends too so we can continue to grow the listener base. We make it really easy for you. If you prefer video format, we got you covered over on YouTube. If you like to just listen in an audio-only format, we got you covered over there too. We're on all major podcasting outlets. So the ThunderCast is really, really easy to subscribe to. Russ, we had a pretty big week in herd athletics. It's been a up and down journey over the last month, and we're going to talk about a lot of it. Basketball season's starting to gear up, and there's other teams that are still competing at high levels on the fields of play, so let's get into all of it. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsors at 304carwreck.com. If you've been injured in a car wreck, visit 304carwreck.com on the web or on Facebook. What happens when an Ohio driver crashes into a West Virginia driver in Kentucky? That can be a mess. But if you can dream it up, Jason and Matt have probably been there, done that, and gotten their clients paid. Don't fight the insurance companies alone. Contact Jason and Matt at 304carwreck.com. Big week. Actually, it might have been a little over a week since we did a show. I don't know. It's been a little extended. It seems like it's been a little bit more than 7 days, maybe closer to 10. And there was a lot that went on. So let's start it off with 5 things that every herd fan needs to know for this week.
Yeah, and this week we do have a bonus, 6 things. So today it will be 6 things every herd fan needs to know this week. As always, brought to you by IgniteLink, the Tri-State's premier IT management team. Number 1, little break from tradition. This is all Russ's view and not a news bite. But I think it is something every herd fan needs to know. More than athletics, J.J. Roberts on the field was a situation that transcends our sports and our cheering and everything that we do. We're talking about a scary situation that was playing out in real time for folks that were there in live and watching on television. And I just wanted to talk about it for a second and talk about, one, we're so thankful that the young man is walking and out and going through the recovery process. It's amazing that there was no major injury from this.
Yeah.
But 2, I just want to reiterate that these are real human beings. They're not simulated people in a video game. They're not professional athletes that you've never met before or anything. This is a man, but still a kid from right here locally in Ona, West Virginia, that was out there on the field. And one row behind me, 1 or 2 seats over, was a very close personal family friend of JJ. And that made it even more real, just hearing in real time all that stuff that was going on. So I just wanted to remind everybody that these athletes that are out here in all of our sports are human beings, and they're putting their welfare on the line at all times. You can get hit in the head with a baseball. You can get a line drive taken to you. You can hyperextend a knee, break something, get a spinal injury in just about any sport where you don't walk again. So I think that's something every herd fan needs to know this week, is we just kind of center and ground ourselves to remind ourselves that these athletes are humans. And I don't know, it's just a scary situation.
Yeah, it was a really scary situation because it was longer than usual break for an injury. And anytime that
Yeah.
kind of stuff happens, you start to get concerned. And it's only natural to start thinking the worst,
Hmm.
but everything is, everybody out there handling that situation is so uber careful, right? And that's why these things take longer than normal, because you want to take your time with something that could be potentially very, very serious. And thankfully, you're right. It was a serious injury, right? In the sense that we don't know this, I'm speculating, but in the sense that JJ may not play again this season, but it wasn't serious enough to, from what we know at least now, to like be life altering, right? It might be
Yeah.
life altering. Again, I don't want to put anything out there that's bad information, but like life altering in a sense, like, well, you may not play competitively again. I don't know that. I'm just saying, but he's out of the hospital. He's walking. That type of life altering we know is not had did not happen. Okay, and we don't know the finer details of his situation, but all we know is what we've seen on social media from family and people closer to the situation, and they seem far more upbeat about it. So that's really good. There's
Yeah.
so much.
With. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I
I
was gonna
thought
say
you were
there's
finished.
so much that goes into these things, and there's so much information that can go in the wrong direction, and you really don't want to be doom and gloom. And there's privacy and all this kind of stuff. But I think what herd fans just need to know is that this could have been a far worse situation,
Yeah.
and it wasn't.
Yeah.
That's the thing you really need to know. Now you just err on the side of caution. Give the family their space. Let them go through the process. Continue to send your well wishes and your love and all the positive vibes that you got, because that matters, man. That means something. But now it's just time to rally around that family and let them handle their process. And if and when JJ makes a return to even just the facility, I mean, hell, he might be
Hmm.
back in school. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, even when he makes a return to the facility just to be around the team again, that's when you can really start to celebrate what has transpired since he went down. But man, it was scary. It was scary.
Yeah. And we are not going to put out anything that's unconfirmed or anything like that. But from the family, from the mom, she did make it public on social media that there was no neck or spinal cord injury. And he kind of put his own update out there that said that he's doing better than well or something like that.
Yeah.
And from what they have said, it was more of a head injury than a neck injury. Still, obviously scary. I mean, um, you can get hit in the head the wrong way and die. So um, basically, what I wanted to point out in this is much greater than the outcome of a game, and we just need to remember that while yes we're going to cheer wildly for our sports teams, that our athletes out here are putting their bodies and lives on the line at all times, and I think we just need to remember that.
Yep, I would agree. It's easy for your average fan to look at athletes and coaches as these, like, not like you said, not real people, but they're real
Yeah,
people. They have
they are.
families, they
Yeah.
have issues, just like we have issues, and their lives are just as every bit as complex as my life and your life is, and but also these are someone's kids. So the parents
Yeah.
sitting up in there and watching, and so just keep it in perspective. We're by no means saying like, this loss doesn't hurt any more than any other loss, but just keep it in perspective. There's some other storylines that came out of this game as far as player reaction that I'll talk about in a little bit, but this kind of was the most important thing that happened there, and the best news about it all is that it is a positive outcome so far. It's
Yeah.
it's a really good outcome in a bad situation so far for JJ. I'm so happy for him, and send him all the love that he can have from me, and you too. I know that, but I'm gonna pull for him obviously forever, but I'm just so happy that this went in a positive direction when it could have been something far worse.
Yeah. Number two on our list of five, and this week six things, is Abby Herring. You ever heard that name before?
Time or two.
Named Sun Belt Conference Women's Runner of the Week last week.
Well, how's that not a thing like every week? I wonder because
I don't know. You remember she finished, I think it was 16th out of 385 or 13th out of 385, somewhere in the mid teens. set a personal and school record, which she seems to just continue to do, is better her own record in all this stuff.
They're
But
gonna have to,
yeah,
you know how they usually do, like, in a record book they'll have, like, I don't know, top 20 finishes, or something like that. Like for football they'll have like the top 20 leading rushers in a career. They're just gonna have to lengthen, like, well, we can't do the top 20 because they're all Abby. You
yeah,
know what I mean? We're gonna have to run the list down until we hit another name, and that's where we'll cut it off. But congratulations to her, man. I still, we somehow we need to get a hold of her and get her on the show somehow.
yeah. I mean, she has. I think you've said this before, but she has probably been the most individually named as far as one of the things,
Sure.
because it's always breaking her own record, shattering a previous record, that sort of thing. So we've got to at one point talk to her about this. Number three, we're going to stick to the Sunbelt Conference of the weeks, and we picked up another one in soccer. This was for last week, not this week's games that just ended, but named right after we recorded. Pablo Simone named Sunbelt Conference Men's Soccer Offensive Player of the Week.
Cool, man. This is like, I don't know how many. I don't know if you keep track, but it seems like a weekly thing. So, um, like I said, there's been a lot of up and a lot of down, and we're going to get into more of that later. But individually, these guys are still accomplishing a lot within the confines of the Sun Belt. We had been achieving some rarefied things on a national stage, and I have some thoughts on what that means moving forward. But any of the week is a great thing, is a great thing, and it seems like this Marshall soccer team just has dominated those of the weeks, particularly the offensive player of the week
Yeah,
category all year long.
it had gotten to the point where we had missed 1 week, and I don't know. It seems like we've missed out on another week since then. But at one point, we had gotten them all but one. Was the
Mm.
Offensive Player of the Week. Let's see. Number four, we're sticking with the Sun Belt Conference news bites here, and this also came out after we had recorded our last five things. But Kerfman and Obina, Camden Kerfman and Obina Anachili Killen were both named to the second team preseason All Sun Belt Conference for the men. And just a little aside, Marshall was picked seventh amongst the coaches in the preseason poll.
Yeah, I don't think that's really disrespectful when you think
Mm-hmm.
about what had
All that we
departed.
lost. Yeah.
Yeah, Kinsey exhausted eligibility, and Taylor and Hanlogden both hit the portal. I mean, huge pieces, So we made some moves, and if you listen to the media day with Danny and Cam Kerfman, you really get a sense of how some of the guys that they brought in this year are going to fit into the picture, and how you can't always just look at a stat line from a player at a previous stop,
Mm-hmm.
and
We
then
said that.
and then let that form your entire opinion. So this is an interesting uh, team makeup, I think. How is the how are these pieces going to come together? But it's not surprising that Kerfman and Obina are both on the second team. It's a little maybe frustrating from a fan perspective, if you're going to be selfish, that nobody landed on the first team, because that Cam has the absolute ability to take over a game if he catches a hot hand. He can
Mm-hmm.
he can absolutely just start raining threes. But will he have to? Will that much of the offense fall on him that he has to do that? I don't know. That's why there's so many unknowns that are on this basketball team. And when we do a preseason roster breakdown like we did last year, we'll have to dive into some of that stuff and just kind of see maybe what it ultimately will look like. But good news nonetheless. Obina is just one of those gutsy type players who's always going 100%, and it seems to be in on every single trip down the floor. He never just falls away during portions of the game. He may not be a huge scorer all the time, but defensively, he's just ever present. And I think that's probably the main draw for him landing on an all SBC team, is the defensive capability that he brings. So I think there are some other guys on this roster that are going to make some strides this year. some
Yeah.
other players that are going to see a rise. It's not unfair that they are omitted from an all SBC team because they just didn't play huge roles last year. I mean, 60% of the starting five basically isn't there. So
Right.
you some of these guys are going to be tasked with playing larger roles. Guys like Connor and Fricks, they're going to have to be a larger contributor, and I think they will be. But to just blanketly hand them a spot on an all SBC team without having to or having proven anything yet, that's not unfair. And the seventh place finish, I love it. It's right in the middle of the league, so I doubt anybody lost more than we lost from a production standpoint. And to still land right in the middle of the league says that there's still a lot of respect there for what Marshall is bringing back. And the real questions are, how will these newcomers gel with the guys that were there? And is this legitimately maybe a top 2, 3, 4 team in the Sun Belt? I don't want to go so far as to say they're going to be the best team in the league. They could be, but this was a team that set a record for wins last year. I mean, the most in God knows how many years it was. I don't remember the how many decades
Mm-hmm.
it had been, and we weren't a top team in the top team last year. So if you can land into that top 3, 4 spot, that's kind of where you want to be. So we'll see if they're able to live up to the hype and maybe overachieve a little bit.
Yeah. Women's basketball is our number 4 thing, and we had Rochella Scott named to the first team, and also the women's team was picked 9th out of 14.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Pick them ninth. That's fine. Again, a lot of unknowns there, and we know that Coach Kim Stevens Caldwell is going to have to really change everything that Marshall did before. This is completely new. How much success will you see in year one? That's the hugest question mark, right? We don't even
Mm-hmm.
know. We can have all the prognostications that we want and bring in all these players that were high performers from other teams and other divisions and all this kind of stuff, and you really don't know until you start playing games. So
Mm-hmm.
I also love that they can use that as probably saying, all right, well, they don't think we can do this, and I'm
Yep.
sure that's part of her message to motivate her team. Rochella Scott being a first team All Sun Belt Conference performer, I think that's a slam dunk, to use a bad pun, because she was just so good all year. And, we talked about it how many times, how many game recaps where we would just do around the herd, and we would say, well, it really seems like if Marshall has that third scorer, they win a game. It's
Mm-hmm.
Beeman and Scott, and if they get a third one, they manage to usually win those games. And the moves that Coach Kim made in the portal, particularly bringing in a number of her players from Glenville, I
Mm-hmm.
think gives Marshall that third, fourth, fifth, maybe even sixth or seventh score, depending on who's on the floor. And you say this a lot. They do a lot of basically like hockey line subbing, 5 in, 5 out, or
Yep.
your wholesale changes. It's a lot to try to transition into a new league. Will it work out to the Sun Belt doesn't see this coming, so they're not built to defend it properly, or is it going to be more of a rough start and we got to try to figure it out on the move and on the fly? Don't really know, but I'm not angry at either of those pieces of news. Obviously, you're not going to be mad at Rochella Scott being first team All SBC, being a ninth place preseason finish. I'm not mad at that either, because that affords them the opportunity to send the messaging that they're overlooking us. They don't think we're going to
Mm-hmm.
be any good. They're basing everything off of last year, blah, 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 blah. And we know that there are key components that returned. So I think Marshall has the makings to be what I'm hoping for the men to be, a top 3 or 4 team. I think the Marshall women can be a top 3 or 4 team in year one under Coach Stevens Caldwell.
Yeah, and it could 100% go either way. You're putting in a brand new system. You got to get your players in, but now with the transfer portal the way it is, you have an easier way to get them in. You don't have to wait for a full recruiting cycle to get players that fit that system. But I do think that with the players that we already had, they were kind of already, several of them, geared for this type of deal. They pushed the ball up the court and they scored a lot. So
Right.
it's just going to be interesting to see. But I do know one thing: we are very close to being able to see this in action, and we're going to talk about that later on exactly when. But you
Yeah.
can get tickets right now for both the men's and women's squads. You can get season tickets. Make sure to go to Herd Zone to do so. Number 6, we have a deadline coming up in about a week. give or take. And it's by October the 31st, Tuesday. You have got to get your bricks for the baseball stadium. If you don't, you cannot be on the list to be picked for season tickets for baseball. We talked about that last week with Ryan Crisp. Just do not forget your bricks.
Yep, that's right. You can go back and listen to that episode. It's in the title, Heard Baseball Season Tickets with Ryan Crisp. And he outlines everything that you need to do, like from step one. So there's no confusion. But absolutely, you have to buy a brick. And remember, it's a one time cost. And this is your opportunity to get something permanent at the stadium that's going to be there as long as that stadium is going to be there. I personally told you that I was going to buy a brick in honor of my father in law. I did that a couple of days ago. And I'm really excited about having done that for him, and he'll have a place at Jack Cook Field forever. I'm not going to utilize my brick to buy season tickets, so I'm not going to be engaging in that because, hey, I live 900 miles away. What am I going to do with season tickets? Of course, the podcast still is going to be trying to utilize their brick for buying season tickets so that we can then give those away. But Halloween, October 31st. So if you're listening to this 3 days from now, you're only going to have a couple of days to buy your brick, and the orders have to be in by the 31st in order to get your name on the list for season tickets that will be in the beginning of December. So don't wait any longer. Herdbricks.com. There will be a link, and it's really easy. I mean, I think it took me maybe 2 minutes to order the brick. So
Yeah.
got to get it done.
I haven't gotten mine yet either because I've been trying to find the perfect thing since it's going to be etched on there forever. But I have got to do it probably before this weekend, before I go to the Coastal game. I'm going to sit down and have what I have on there. And if by Thursday I don't have a good idea of what I want on the Living Good Family brick, it's just going to say the Living Good Family brick. But we're going to get one.
Yes, it'll say. I guess, are these going on the? They're not going on the facade, right? They're going on the plaza.
Plaza, yeah.
Yeah,
and it's got a name.
That's what yours is.
It's got a name, and I can't remember the name of the plaza there, but 100% that's where it's going. And you're going to want to be able, take your kids, and then your kids can take their kids years down the road and say, hey, there's the brick that was bought to help get this place built.
It's a once in a lifetime thing, man. I mean, you got to be able to do it. You got to do it now. And I said this before. They may open up like another section of the concourse, or not concourse, but the plaza or something to sell more. But you can't guarantee that'll happen. So take advantage of this now. If you've got, it's as little as like $200 or something like that to get a brick, and you get a brick that matches the one that's going to go in the plaza. So eventually I will have one when it shows up. It'll be a part of my backdrop here somehow. I'm going to have to, maybe I'll put it over here on this table under the Cato jersey, but so that it'll be part of my Twitter background shit, my podcast studio background. So
herdbricks.com, and the cheapest one, I mean, you can get certificates, you can get display cases, you can get whatever you want to up there, but just getting a brick,
it's $195 plus probably a little bit of tax and some fees.
Yeah.
So I think I got the standard brick, and then I got, of course, the complimentary replica that comes included in the price, and then my brother-in-law wanted a copy, so he got an additional replica that's going to be sent to him. They're going to ship it directly to him, and and it comes with a certificate also. But I think we got all that, and it was under $280 shipped, and that's for 3 total bricks and the certificate. So you got to do it, man.
All right, well, that ends our 6 things this week every Herd fan needs to know. As always, brought to you by Ignite Link.
Well, we thank those guys because Ignite Link has just been so integral in what we do, and I want to talk about a little bit when we do the James Madison recap, because the ThunderCast Live was probably the most epic that we've had so far in terms of guests that were on the show. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But first, I want to switch it up a little bit. I want to take it around the herd because I think there are some things that are going to be included. As a matter of fact, I know there are going to be some things that are going to be included that I'm going to want to utilize, and it'll fit better when I'm doing grades James Madison with you. So let's go around the herd.
All right, we're going to start with tennis. And at the ITA Atlantic Regionals, there were 5 different days all last week. Hurion, Vanderheyden, and Strom all made the round of 32 in singles. Hurion and McGrain made the round of 16 in doubles. And then Strom ended up winning her consolation match after being eliminated after the round of 32. Pretty good showing.
Yep, good start to herd tennis. They were good last year, man, and they were going neck and neck with Old Dominion until they had the head to head with Old Dominion. But Old Dominion was, I don't want to say things like far and away better, but they're a really good tennis team.
Weren't they like 6th in the country
Yeah.
or 8th in the? I mean, they were a notch above everyone in the Sun Belt.
Everyone.
We were better than a lot of the Sun Belt field, and then ODU was just better than everyone in the Sun Belt.
Yep, they were, and that's what I'm saying. It's not a knock on herd tennis at all. We were a really good team, and I'm expecting a strong result of the 2023 fall season this year. But man, I mean, we fell in some top rankings. I don't remember what
Yes.
it was. Were we like a top 20, top 50, something like
We
wherever
were
they
top.
cut
We were top 8 on not draft class, recruiting class. I think it was
No.
8. It may have been higher.
Yeah, that was number 8 in mid-major tennis ranking. I remember that, or recruiting ranking. But I'm talking about, remember, we were going in up against the match leading into Old Dominion, and we were both top-ranked teams. They were, like you said, number 5 or something like that, and we were like 20-something or 30. I'd have to go back and find it, but I remember us catching a ranking, and I thought, wow, I didn't see that coming. So you can expect more wins from herd tennis this year. I think another year of development, another year of just honing your craft and your skill. It's natural that you would think a mostly intact team from a year ago is going to be better this year. So Old Dominion, I expect to be really strong again. I think perennially they are just a strong tennis program year in and year out. But I expect some marked success from herd tennis once again, and we're seeing it right now. We saw it in Thunder in the Mountains. We're seeing it now. Herd tennis is off and running, man. So keep track on some of these tennis players, because I think they're going to accomplish some great things. Don't be surprised if you see several of the weeks from the Sun Belt tennis team, or the Sun Belt this year for herd tennis. I think we're in for something special.
Over in volleyball, we beat App State 3-0 and then 3-2 on the sets for Friday and Saturday. And there's a great bounce back week after being swept last week. And now we are heading to Coastal for Friday at 6 p.m. and Saturday at 1 p.m. So here's the deal. What's going on in Coastal on Saturday? Well, I'll tell you, there's a big football game. So if you're going to be down there, why not go over and you've got 2 different opportunities to go cheer on your Marshall Herd volleyball team, 6 p.m. on Friday if you're getting down there by that time, and then 1 p.m. on Saturday before you start tailgating.
Dude, I think that would be freaking awesome if herd fans that were going to the football game invaded the volleyball match and basically turned that into a home match for the herd down at Coastal. How freaking cool would that be? I'm trying to look real quick, and I don't know. Oh, wait
about
a minute.
How the proximity.
No, dude, you're either herd zone's wrong or you're wrong. I'm looking at the schedule. It says their Coastal matches at the CAM.
I read this wrong.
Oh man, I thought we were going to do something really cool. I was going to look it up and see if they had tickets if they were free.
This is the only mistake I'll ever make on this show.
Dang.
But
I was ready to go all in on that.
I wrote in shorthand and I put host instead of Marshall is hosting.
Yeah.
I just wrote host Coastal and I was like, oh, Coastal's hosting.
Oh man, I was on my way to the Coastal website to see if they charged for volleyball matches. Because damn, that would have been cool.
We'll edit all this out.
I tell you what, just go anyway. There probably won't be anybody there, but just go.
Maybe they'll put it on the big screen for us.
Dang, that would have been so cool. That's all right.
It would have. I'm sure that's why we haven't seen anything on social media about such
probably.
Yeah.
Probably so. Hey, don't worry about it. Just don't listen to that last minute and a half. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Fast forward.
But
Fast
look,
forward.
they did win the Old Mountain Feud volleyball edition, which is cool. I mean, I know App fans or not App fans, but Marshall fans really like to beat App State.
Mhm.
And I think I in this young Sun Belt era, where we're still trying to figure out who we like beating the most. Last year, I think a lot of our several athletes indicated that they really circle games against Louisiana. They like to beat Louisiana because we've got short history with them, a couple of football games already, and the basketball series was really competitive. And I think for a lot of fans, or at least in our capacity with the ones that we interact with a lot, they really like beating James Madison and playing against James Madison. But there's just always going to be a huge sector of the fan base that wants to beat App State in everything that we play. So to be able to get a little bit of a sweep against them, always a good feeling. So
Yep.
congratulations to Coach Ari and that squad for holding serve, so to speak, at home and winning the Old Mountain Feud volleyball match.
Yeah, and I hate that I made that mistake. I mean,
It's all
I
right.
hate making mistakes on here anyway, but since I'm going to
Yeah.
Coastal, I'm sitting here, the wheels are turning. It's like, yeah, if I could get down there in time for that 6 p.m., how could I make that happen?
It's all right. One day the stars will align and that'll be able to be a thing, and we'll pump it up then. But yeah,
I
just
don't know why the Sun Belt doesn't do that sort of thing. If these seasons are overlapping, they should kind of look at that.
that's a
Because
good idea.
I'm maybe I'll take that to the commissioner the next time he and I have lunch.
Well, I would really like it if you also got me in touch with him, because I still have a tremendous idea that I want to share, and I'm not going to divulge it because I don't want somebody stealing the idea, and I think it would be great.
I think I know what it is, and it involves Judy being ousted as the
No,
CUSA
she can
commissioner.
stay there forever. That's fine. She can stay there forever.
No, that's a rider in all my ideas. All right, so next thing that we're moving to is men's golf, and they finished 5th out of 13 in the Dayton Invitational last week. Joseph Kolaski led the team with a 2 under, and that was good for tied for 11th overall individually. Tyler Jones 1 over, and Ryan Bilby 3 over, also placed amongst the top 26. Very good showing for the herd.
Yep.
They traveled to Brown Summit, North Carolina for the Bryan National Men's Collegiate Sunday through Tuesday, October 29th through October 31st.
Cool. Yeah, a couple strong showings. 3 really top 26. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Herd golf is doing well. Doing well.
There were 80 individual golfers on the leaderboard for that. So 3 in the top 26. I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I know the percentages aren't exact, but call it the top quarter. That's pretty good. 3 in the top quarter ish. Let's call it that. Also, last thing, sell the hats. Would you sell the hats? Yeah.
All right, women's golf. Casey McIlvain finished 4th overall. Very good showing for her, and the women were 1 shot off of 5th place in their match last week.
Yeah. Did I see this right, that we got an of the week from women's golf? Am I remembering that wrong?
That was the previous week.
Okay.
Yep. McClatchy.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was. These weeks, man, they run together sometimes, especially when we go like this. I swear it feels like it's been 10 days or something since we recorded, and it's really, really hard to remember what happened like on the 11th day ago or the 12th day ago.
So the deal is we record usually before the day before this comes out or whatever, and we had recorded on a Sunday, and we didn't have some of these of the weeks come out on Sunday, and it's the day you record. By the time the show comes out, it's already a day old, and then we're a week out before we get to it.
Yeah.
So, they are now headed to the FBCI Invitational, and that's in Asheville on October the 30th. So that will be their last of the fall season.
Okay, time to close it out strong. Let's roll.
All right, cross country, the Sun Belt Conference Championships are this Saturday in Foley, Alabama, and also of note, track and field released their 2023 and 2024 indoor and outdoor schedule on Herd Zone and the Herd Zone app. there are several Huntington events that you can go to. Make sure that you check that out on the app or herdzone.com.
Yep. Let's make it. Let's make a run at it, man. This Sunbelt cross country championships, we've got a legitimate shot to make some real noise here in this one. We've got some all timers going to be making one final go of it. And how awesome would it? I tell you what, if Abby somehow wins something, that's it. That's it. We didn't need a qualifier to like reach out to somebody to get her on the show, but if that happens, there's no more excuses for us. We just have to have it happen. Period. And I don't know what the hell we're waiting on anyway. I mean, it is in season for her, so she is a little busy and has a job and is a student and all that kind of stuff. So I could see, how it might not work in her favor.
Who wouldn't make time for us?
Well, that's true.
We're big in Europe. Yeah.
We're like the David Hasselhoff of herd fans. We're huge in Germany.
All right. So men's basketball picked up a commitment. Tall, 6'10" power forward Eric Harding. And also, fans' first game is Pikeville on Saturday at 3 p.m. More about that in a minute when we talk about women's.
Yep, I love it, man. Love it. That's a couple of herd commits and a couple of short days. It's not like 2 in 2 days, but it's 2 within a week.
Yeah.
So that's something you like to see. I like that. These are often surprising to me, because it's just not as in your face as football recruiting, and it's not covered as much. At least it's not on my social media feeds. So usually I don't even see like such and such got an offer, such and such this. It's just like, bam, committed. And I'm like, well, hell, that was a nice little surprise for the, Wednesday afternoon Twitter timeline. So let's talk about that real quick and let's dig into that real quick. So that's pretty cool. But you can tell that it's amping up. And luckily, here's the thing for me. Luckily, we do not go to a school. I don't go to Marshall anymore, but we're not affiliated with a school that this part into the football season, they're already going, bring on basketball season, because there are a lot of schools that are like that. If they're not 6-0 or 7-0, they're like, well, basketball season's here, thank God. And we're not like that. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of this gets filtered out of my feed is because people are still so heavily engaged in football.
Yep. Yeah, zoned right in on football, and some people, that is all that they care about. We look at attendance of football. It's only 6 home games a year, and if we get 23,000, we think that's on the lower end. Mm-hmm. And then, we have 7,000 in basketball, and that's on the high end. So some people, their focus is only about football. This used to be a basketball town. We have a lot of history here in basketball, and basketball was the premier sport at Marshall. And it is still there for a lot of people that's what they care about is the basketball recruiting. That's what they care about is the basketball discussion. They go to every basketball game, and they enjoy football too, but their passion is basketball. And I think having Coach D'Antoni come here, as someone that they've been watching since he was here as a player. We've got fans that still have their seats from way back when he was there at a drastically different location at the field house. And now seeing this recruiting stuff, and it's, the age of Twitter, X, Facebook, that sort of thing, where they can get on there. There are a lot of passionate people that discuss this. And I have to find their stuff to kind of filter this out and everything. Because like you said, unless you're subscribed to something that just gives you all this stuff, you get 2 to 3 recruits a year, and that's it. It's just so hyper-focused, whereas football, you bring in a class of 27. You've got 3 here. And that can drastically transform a roster. And we're looking at 6'7" guard, now 6'10" forward. Some good size to bring in.
Yeah, sure is. You don't know how that's going to look a couple of years from now, right?
Yeah.
Because the portal doesn't go away. So
right.
You don't know. You can so easily flip a basketball team with a handful of players. And you just can't really do that with football because there's so many moving parts and just so many players on the field at one given time. But you can flip a basketball team's success with, 2 or 3 additions. And but what I was getting at is like even the larger recruiting sites, people think of Rivals and 24/7 or On
Yeah.
Three, even they don't put out basketball. Maybe they do, but it just doesn't make it to my timeline because
It's
our followers are just so always bought in on football until, oftentimes games are going on in
yeah.
basketball before people start to move away from their football fandom, that they start to cheer on basketball too, and you start to see more of it. But look, let me talk about one more thing before we move on, unless you've got something else. You talked about Dan Tony being here. Well, younger fans don't really remember that. But you've got three former players on the staff. You've got Corny Jackson, which is a Mac era guy that a lot of people are going to remember, guys our
Mhm.
age. And then now you've got Adam Williams, who's on staff as well. It's just an even newer era of Herd fans. So there's a coach on staff that covers a lot, like literal decades,
Yeah.
like 40 years, 50 years maybe worth of Herd basketball that people can rally around. So they've done an excellent job of assembling, this staff in that capacity, right? So it's really cool. I'm really excited about men's basketball. It sucks that Taylor decided to leave, and it sucks that Han Logden decided to leave. But I'm really excited about what this coaching staff is doing to make this 2023-24 Herd basketball team a new team, but its own identity. So you're not like, well, now what do we do? Taylor's gone. Now what do we do? And Logden's gone. Well, now what do we do? Kinsey's gone. Three huge pieces that are gone. Huge, especially Tavion Kinsey, an all timer, maybe the greatest. Probably the greatest. He and Elmore, probably the two greatest players in gosh, how many decades? How many? Do you like my? Did you see those balloons?
I yeah, I thought I was having an
What
acid
the hell
trip. With
was that?
it was wild because I don't do acid. So
I hope that if that shows up on the podcast, I don't know what the hell that was, but I don't know why balloons. I didn't touch anything. My hands. That is weird. Anyway, probably
was
two of
this?
the.
I bet this was close to our anniversary of switching over to this format or
But
something.
still, during a live broadcast, that seems weird. I wonder if it was because I was holding up two fingers or something. And let me try that real quick. Let me see if it does that again. What the
No,
heck?
you
That
just look
was
stupid.
that was so weird. Anyway, Kinsey and Elmore, two of the greatest players in probably the past 20 years,
Hmm.
and so you can't discount the fact that Kinsey is gone. I hope if he is able with him playing pro ball now, I hope he's able to come back to the cam a lot because guys are going to want to see him at games. Fans are going to want to see him at games. He's a beloved player,
Yeah.
and I know you go off and you do this chapter of your life, but having guys like that close to your program means a lot. Think about how important it is to football folks seeing guys like Ralph Street back on staff and Shannon Morrison on staff. That's a big deal, and we need. I love seeing that. I love seeing our players, our alums, close to a program again. But basketball's coming, man. Better get amped up.
The women's fans first game is also Saturday, and it's 6:30 p.m. So got a great opportunity for an entire. Or wait, I said Saturday. I mean Sunday, the
Okay.
29th. Got a great opportunity to go there and watch the men play, short a little intermission, then watch the women play with their brand new team, brand new offense, that sort of thing. Should be a really, really good opportunity to get your basketball fix. So if you're still in or you've made it back from Myrtle Beach, go over to the cam. Everything is free on Fans First. Make sure you go over there and have a wonderful time celebrating the start of the basketball season. This is the official kickoff to both.
I think you should go if you're able, because you'll be able to get your eyes live on this women's basketball team for the first time. You'll really get to gauge your personal level of excitement. And I feel comfortable saying you can probably buy season tickets right there if you're going to go. And you're like, man, I really like what I see. I think this could be exciting. Let me secure a couple of seats here because it's really cheap. What was like $40 or something is a season tickets, cheapest season tickets or something like that. Really, really cheap. And of course, they did this with soccer when they did the fans first games. There was always some special giveaway. If you remember when we talked about fans first, that they were only going to exclusively have at these fans first games. I haven't seen what that is, But I expect that trend to continue since something that the athletic department talked about. So just another reason to get out there and go. Free admission, and you get to lay your eyes on the new look herd for the first time. I mean, it's what else you going to do for free on a Sunday?
Yeah.
Go to church. You can stay home and watch football if you want to, or you can go get 2 free games at the camp.
Yeah. Let's see here. We are now going over to football. We picked up a commitment wide receiver, Marcel Williams. Uh, that is, I'm trying to think. Did we have somebody a couple of weeks ago that committed? I think as well. But anyway, early in this off season, I guess you would say, way before signing day, the first signing day, we pick up a commitment.
Yep, South Florida guy. I think he's from Hollywood or Pompano Beach or something like that. Um, it's a consensus 3-star prospect, and of course you can't put your entire opinion of a guy can't just be a star rating, but these are good indicators. On the rise. Anytime you're a South Florida guy that can play, we all know the concentration of talent that's down in that area. So um, guys that you can pull from that area generally are pretty good performers, and we'll have to see how this um, class breaks out. Because I'm not a super roster nerd all the time as far as how many scholarships are available and who's going to be this and how many are going to, because you just never know who's going to hit the portal, who's going to whatever. And but remember, you've got early signing period that's coming up in December, so you're not that far away. Right around bowl season is when you're going to start seeing some commitments for the 24 class. Now they're verbal right now, but you can start to see some letters of intent being signed in December. So interesting. It's always interesting. And I've learned through the Doc Holliday era and now the Charles Huff era, you cannot form your opinions of a recruiting class in any given year right at the deadline for signing day, because you always have those guys that fall under the radar, those that do not sign, those guys that were maybe going to go somewhere else, and then the class filled up at that school, and now we are going to benefit from somebody who just waited too long to make their decision. It doesn't mean they didn't want to come to Marshall. It just means that their opportunity elsewhere maybe isn't there anymore. So you have to really let the whole process play its course. But the guys we have in the class right now, if you go look at it, you got to be pretty happy with where it is this early. It's still early in the
That's what I'm saying. Real
in the
early to me.
process. Yeah.
Women's soccer, they lost 4-1 at Georgia Southern on Thursday, and they bounced back here on Sunday, shut out Coastal at home 1-0. Both of the goals in those games were scored by Bailey Fisher, and really, like, she's got, I think, 4 of the last 5 or 3 of the last 4. Great, I think 7 on the year so far, leads the team. They finished the regular season Thursday at Louisiana, and that is going on 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So last regular season game here already.
Well, yeah, quick season. Dang, it seems like a quick season anyway. But it was good. It was a really strong start. Injuries got to them in the middle part of the season and have throughout the end part of this season too. And you've seen the herd be able to hang tough in a bunch of games, and then late in several contests, it was just like, man, what happened? There was like 5 goals scored, and when it was 1-0 or something. And I give them a lot of credit for fighting, continuing to fight in the face of really dismantling type injuries. Big key players on this herd roster that were doing big things for the herd and were big contributors to the success of this overall team went down, and they still fought and still going out there and playing gutsy soccer. So, getting a win over Coastal, that also feels good for some reason. Just I don't really dislike Coastal. I don't really like Coastal. I'm kind of indifferent towards them personally. But still, that just felt good. And maybe that's bleed over from the men from last year, when they beat us down in Conway and they shouldn't have. And so maybe that's what I'm just thinking. Wow, this feels good.
It was a tie, but
Well, tie,
same
yeah,
deal.
but they shouldn't have
Yeah.
they shouldn't have done that. and we were able to get them back this year at the
Mhm.
vet, and maybe this is just a kind of off the coattails of that good feeling that it feels good to go ahead and get the season sweep for the Herd over Coastal.
All right, so men's soccer is where we finish up, and they lost at West Virginia 5-2 on Wednesday in a top 5 matchup, and then they were shut out at home by Kentucky 2-0 on Sunday.
Rough.
The wheels fell off these last 2 games. They travel to Old Dominion on Friday, and then next Tuesday they'll be at South Carolina.
Yeah, got to win them. You got to win the both of those matches, and maybe hope for a little bit of help, because now I think I saw somewhere one of the accounts that follows soccer a little closer than we do. I mean, at least as far as like the standings and all that kind of stuff. I think I saw them say that Marshall now doesn't control its own destiny in the conference tournament. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not true, but nonetheless, you got to get back to the winning ways and close out the season 2-0. Put yourself in the best position to get the best seeding possible. But I want to talk about that game up in Morgantown. Told you that could be a tough one, and it proved to be. I saw some people. I was able to watch a little bit of it, and I noticed that Marshall was slipping and sliding all over the field. And I had heard. I'm not putting anything out there. I'm not saying this is what happened, but I had heard some people say that they soaked the field to a degree so that it was a not necessarily an ideal playing condition. I don't know if they did or not, and I'm not making an excuse. But Marshall got 5 goals put on them, and they were sliding around a little bit, and I was thinking, do they need to put some longer cleats on? Is that the problem? But it's just something I wouldn't have thought of. Maybe they didn't do it. I'm absolutely not trying to take anything away from West Virginia. I'm just saying that's wild to me.
It's a grass field, and
Yeah.
we play on turf, and that's going to be a difference. I'm sure that they probably have different cleats for different surfaces.
Yes.
But too, when someone goes to a Cincinnati Reds game for the first time, that's the closest MLB team. You go up there, and I've had people go with me, and they're like, what are they watering the field for? And the drainage is put into things like that. So when you do water it, it's not like a high school field where it's going to be a swamp.
Mm-hmm.
What I saw on the slipping and sliding, yes, they were doing it, but I saw that WVU was also sliding a little bit. More than anything, I saw a couple of lackadaisical passes and an aggressive defense by WVU intercept those and take them down and score. And it seems like almost like if you've ever played poker, when you go on tilt, Marshall went on tilt. There were 3 goals scored against us in under 2 minutes. And a couple of them were on those passes of just kind of nonchalant, kick it over to a person when they weren't looking. And their all-world guy that I think he got three of the 5 goals. I can't remember his name, Madeira or something like that. Went down and scored on a couple of those. He had 2 of the goals there within 2 minutes. It was just a non-Marshall-esque performance.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I did notice the sliding. I did see someone say that they had wetted the field down before the game, but that is also still decently common that you would, wet it down. I think that would have been something that was a major media talking point if it would have been.
It would have been.
More.
Of course. That's why I'm not saying I'm accusing them of anything. I'm just
Right.
saying I saw that and I thought, wow, I wouldn't have thought to do that, but whatever. Anyway, you want to talk about it, Marshall got handled in that game, and that hurts me to say because I don't like to praise the Mountaineers for anything, but they took it to our guys. 5-2 is convincing. If it would have been 3-2, you'd be like, all right, well, we let that one slip away. But 5-2, there was no question, and we scored first. So you had the advantage, and then they really went on a 5-1 stretch. So it was a dominant performance by them. So credit to them, they did what they had to do. And just to follow that up, you needed that bounce back win against Kentucky at home at the Vet, where you are, accustomed to playing. Every bump in the turf, so to speak, and to not be able to do that. I hope this is a galvanizing stretch for this Herd men's soccer team. I hope this is one of those things where he goes, you know what? Maybe we were just buying into, well, we're never out of a game or out of a match, right? Because we're just that good. Well, You're getting down to the nitty gritty. You might be just that good, but you can be out of a match. And we were out of a match, 2 of them.
Here's your explanation on the standings for anyone where you were talking about, us controlling our own destiny. The way it works in soccer is you get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw. Marshall in conference is now 5-2, so they have 15 points. UCF is 5-1-1, so they have 16 points. So they are now ahead of us because we lost these 2 games. West Virginia is also right there with us. They have 4 wins, giving them 12 points there, but they have 3 draws, so that makes it 15 there.
Plus a tiebreaker.
So they have the tiebreaker over us. Even though we have 5 wins, they have 4 wins, they're ahead of us.
Yeah.
So we are now in 3rd place if it were to end today. Right. So it's going to be however it ends up over the last couple of games. But these next 2, we really need to bring home 3 and 3, put us up to 21 points.
Yeah, Marshall's got to go undefeated. You're going to need a little bit of help. And remember, West Virginia and UCF have already played. They played to a draw. So you're not going to get any help with them playing one another. Mm-hmm. So they're going to need a loss by one of those 2 or both of those in one of their final 2. And Marshall's going to have to go 2-0 in order to leapfrog in front of somebody. So it's not ideal for the Herd. You just got to take care of business. You got one more opportunity at the Vet, I believe, and then you said on the road for one more. So we'll have tickets to the final match at the Vet, and we'll just have to take care of our business.
These next 2 games are both away.
Oh, crap! Kentucky was the last one at home?
No, they've got another one. I'm just saying these next 2 games are away. They're at Old Dominion and on Friday, and then at South Carolina on Tuesday. So these next 2, fairly certain there's one more game. I don't know when that is in November. I don't have the full schedule up. I'm looking at the Sun Belt schedule right now of what's coming up. So UCF is playing away at Georgia State, and that is on Friday as well. And West Virginia and Kentucky are playing in Lexington at 6 p.m. on Friday.
Well, you're going to be a big UK fan in that one. They can sneak up and beat you. So we need them to do that to the Mountaineers in Lexington. Need a little help. I hate that we're saying we need some help, but that's what happens. We had a bad week, and now we need a little help. Is that it?
I'm sitting here looking. Let me look real quick. I think that may have been our final game, was that Kentucky game, final home game. Take me just 1 second here.
Well, I'm trying. Oh, there we go.
I thought we had one more game, but we do not.
Oh,
that was our final home game.
No. South Carolina says it's at Hoops Family Field, dude. You're struggling.
It's at home.
Yes,
you're struggling today.
We're both struggling. Damn, I've got balloons flying off during the broadcast. I don't even know what the hell that was.
All right. Well, I wrote down 2 different things.
I wrote down host, and I meant that they were hosting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I misread that one, but I think that I wrote down at South Carolina on Tuesday. I just wrote the wrong thing.
Yeah, no, it's a Halloween affair for the Herd, 7:15, which kind of sucks because are they doing trick or treat on Halloween this year? Do you know?
Yep.
So that's going to go right during trick or treat. So that'll probably be a bummer.
Take your kids over there. I'll be over there to give them some Snickers.
Yeah. They ought to do trick or treat at the game, but we'll have tickets for that one, and this will be your last opportunity to see some great ones with the Herd at home, unless we can get a little lucky and maybe make some noise and play something at home in the postseason. But
and a little news: we're also now officially going to hire someone as an intern to go through and make my preparation notes for me, so I can just read the monitor like Ron Burgundy. I screwed that up last week.
People are like, these guys are really getting lazy with their broadcast. No, not really. It's just a lot to cover, and mistakes happen. So if you don't like it, I implore you to start your own podcast and try to get everything right every day. It is incredibly hard, and that's why we laugh it off and just roll with it.
I get stuff wrong every show.
Every show.
Yeah, every show.
So is that it? Is that all the Around the Herd? All right. Well, we've got a big football game that we've got to recap because the football season has not stopped, despite what has happened the last Well, in the last month, let's put it that way. There's a lot of positive and a lot of not so positive that's happened in the last month. But look, James Madison came to town on Thursday night for the midweek. Just over 22,000 fans were reported. I'm going to say that's a pretty solid turnout. I would have liked to seen that bump up another, couple thousand fans would have been great. But for a Thursday night affair, that's not bad. James Madison gets the 20-9 victory. The Herd drops now to 4-3 overall in the season, 1-2 in conference. And I want to say this from the very beginning. I want you guys that are listening to this episode, if you've stayed with us this long, to listen to the recap, or if you skipped directly to the recap. Whatever you want to do is fine with me. But I'm going to ask you, please, stick around and listen to the entirety of the grades, because there are some things that have occurred to me, or not really occurred to me, but after we've had time to digest and breathe and be away from social media for a couple of days, or football basically for a couple of days, some things have just crept into my mind, and I want to share those. But you mentioned this as our number one thing. The most important thing that happened in that game was not a 20-9 loss. It was J.J. Roberts getting injured, and we know that he is okay. So we covered that already. I just wanted to mention that, bring it up again, because he is ever present in our minds and ever present in the minds of Herd fans. We love him, and we hope he gets back to normal really, really soon. So let's get into the game. Russ, indicators. If you're just looking at the stat lines on the indicators, you're going to go, wow, this is probably a really dominating game for James Madison. And I think it was dominating to a degree, but it just didn't show up on the scoreboard. And I think that's a testament to this Herd defense. Total yards, James Madison 405, the Herd just 169 total offensive yards. Wow. Time of possession 33-49 for the Dukes, 26-11 for the Herd. Edge, James Madison. First downs, also really convincing. 19 for James Madison, just 10 for the Herd. Third down conversions, James Madison edges this one out. They go 5 of 14, which isn't great, but Marshall went 5 of 16. Penalty yards, also pretty close. Barely edged out. This is kind of like a 50-50 ball, depending on which one you want to count. 4 penalties for 20 yards for the Dukes, 3 for 27 for the Herd. So overall penalties, the Herd gets the edge. Penalty yards, the Dukes gets the edge. And then turnovers, 2 for Marshall, just 1 for James Madison, giving it a clean sweep to the Dukes and the indicators in this game. Quick bullet points for me. The Herd went down just 3-0 at halftime. If you would have said that was what was going to play out, I don't think anybody in either fan base would have believed you, because we thought we were in for a pretty high-scoring affair, and we just didn't see it. We saw a big defensive battle especially the first half. The offense, though, in this one for the Herd scored 0 points. All 9 points for Marshall came by way of either defense or special teams. The defense, though, they did play overall great. They fought tooth and nail for as long as they could, and had they been able to get some semblance of offensive support by points earlier in the game, I think this would have changed what they were able to do. But they just were on the field too much, man, and it got to the point to where they just couldn't keep pace. Stuff just started working late in the game for James Madison. I don't fault them at all. We got the effort that we had been wanting to see all year from this Herd defense. And the special teams played absolutely phenomenally. Absolutely phenomenally. So give me some quick reaction before I get into players and general stats, because I want to get to our grades. I think that's going to take up a fair amount of time. But how about some just initial reaction?
It was all about field position, and it was all about that defensive line that we knew was going to be tough to go up against. And that was the difference maker. I got real quick. I just want to run through these things. First quarter, we started on the 1, the 1, and the 1.
Mm-hmm.
First quarter, we didn't have a possession where we were not starting on our 1 yard line. Quarter 2, we had kickoff go into the end zone after that field goal. So we started on the 25, and then we started on the 6 and the 11. Up until the halftime, we had one possession that started on the 25-yard line. Everything else was inside our 11. Overall, our average starting position was 16-yard line. 8 of our 13 possessions started at that 11 or closer mark. It is hard to put drives together, especially when you're on the 1 yard line. JMU saw that too. starting out the third quarter, they were on the 1 yard line, safety.
Mm-hmm.
Their second time, they ended up getting the pass interference in the 53-yard pass, so they got some room to maneuver. But still, when you start on your 1 yard line, there's not much you can do except for running it right up the middle or a QB sneak of just trying to get a couple of yards just so you're not going to get a safety when you hand it off. So, field position and the defensive line making that field position even tougher won this game.
Yep, that's why it's really surprising that the Herd was only down 3-0 at halftime.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that really speaks to how well this defense played, with James Madison being on a massively short field for the entire first half, and the Herd being behind the 8 ball on the one, 3 straight possessions to start the game.
Hey, JMU started in Marshall's territory 4 out of their 12 possessions. And that's when you start on your one and you have to punt,
Right.
it puts you right around there. 3 of their 6 in the second half, they started in Marshall's territory.
Yep.
So the defense only giving up 20. And how often have we said, if we can score 21 points, it's, with our defense, this should be a win, This is one of those games where that would have happened. The last couple or last 3 before this, we had given up in the 40s, and that was uncharacteristic of this defense. But generally, if you can score 21, you can win with Marshall's defense, and this would have been one of those games.
Yeah. So I want to go right in. Like I said, let's talk about our guys and what we did and move on, because there's a lot of stuff that I want to. I just think grades and revisiting keys are going to take a little bit of extra time. Cam Fancher goes 17 of 30 in this game for 173 yards. No touchdowns, 1 interception. He had 12 carries for just 2 yards, but he was sacked 8 times, accounting for 60 lost rushing yards. Ethan Payne had 20 carries for 70 yards, averaged 3.1 yards per carry. Jaden Harrison had 4 catches, led the Herd, 40 yards, led the Herd, and a long of 16. DeMarcus Harris just had 1 catch, but it went for 36 yards. Nice chunk play. Cade Conley had 2 for 36 with a long of 24. Another nice chunk play. Again, I mentioned the Herd just had 169 total yards of offense, scored no points. But the big thing was Rasheen Ali didn't play. We didn't know that until pregame. We were doing ThunderCast Live, and right before we hit, stream, we learned that Marshall could be without somewhere between 5 and 7 starters in this game. And when you take that into account, 20-9 doesn't seem that bad. And it really amplifies how this defense played out of its mind for probably about 40 minutes worth of this game before they started to see James Madison see success against them. 3 consecutive drives you mentioned to start the game began at the 1 yard line, which meant they lived in a long field all day. Really, your only opportunity to flip the field was coming out at halftime, because you're not going to change that trajectory unless you push a long drive together. And Marshall was able to get a 46-yard drive at one point, but it ended in a punt. So they were able to, kind of get some field position going, but it was later in the half. And again, 8 sacks allowed. James Madison's defensive line as advertised. That's what you can say. Defensively, Deani Hill leads the way for the Herd. 10 total tackles, 5 solo, and 2 pass breakups to go along with it. Eli Neal, who we speculated may not play because he left and was in street clothes against Georgia State, he was out there. 8 total tackles, second on the team. 1 of those was solo, and he had a half a tackle for loss. And J.J. Roberts, despite being injured later in the game, was still tied for the third team lead with tackles. He and Kashawn Brown both had 7 total. JJ's were all assisted tackles. Kashawn Brown had 2 of his that went solo. Impact plays, the Herd just had 1 combined sack by Owen Porter and Elijah Austin. They had the beautiful interception by Micah Abraham that was on the 1 yard line. And then a safety by Tyquez Legs. The downside is they allowed 405 yards, but only gave up 20 points. So that's a lot. I mean, I'm telling you, man, that you might not like it, but that is the type of effort that we had been hoping to see by this Herd defense all season long. They played as good as they could for as long as they could, because they just kept getting put back out there. 3 and out for Marshall, 2 play turnover drive, and they were back out there. And that's why things started working late in the game. Special teams wise, John McConnell had another great game. 8 total punts, first of all. 15 combined punts in this game, right? JMU's punter's getting the shine because he landed all 7 of his punts went inside the 20. But the caveat to that is McConnell couldn't put as many in the 20 because all of JMU's guys' punts went inside the 20, and we just weren't moving the ball. But McConnell had 8 punts, 391 total yards for a 48.9 yard average, and uncorked a 74-yard career-long punt for the Herd. 2 of his did land inside the 20, and he had 2 punts of 50-plus yards. Jaden Harrison, 3 total kick returns for 153 yards, including a 94-yard kick return for touchdown in the 4th quarter to get Marshall right back in the game after James Madison had just scored. It was an amazing performance by defense and special teams considering. All right. So let's revisit some keys to the game. Russ, what was your number 1?
I do not remember. I didn't have them written down. Okay. So I know on ThunderCast Live, I talked about the field position, and that was not what we had talked about in our previous, but I thought field position was going to be big. I can't remember if that was one of my points or not, but it turned out to be true. But yeah, you just go ahead with yours.
Well, I'll breeze through mine then. My number 1 key to victory was that Marshall had to be disciplined because we saw penalties kill the Herd, and they had to play sound defense. And by golly, that's a huge green check because we saw it. Only 3 penalties all day long and great defense from a team standpoint. We saw far fewer chunk plays in this one. Yes, they had a big long run that set up a score. Yes, they had a long pass that set up a score, but there was overall far fewer chunk plays allowed by this Herd defense, and you see that the direct correlation to success, right, from on the scoreboard. And then we saw better team tackling. There wasn't a lot of short pass, long run after the catch type stuff. So it was a lot of swarming defense today, or on Thursday, is what we needed to see. Big green check mark. Number 2, I said that the wide receivers and tight ends needed to maximize their opportunities. All right, here's the check. They did do that. Here's the problem with that. They just didn't have very many opportunities to maximize, right? So the ones they got, they did. Several chunk plays, nice downfield pass to Conley, nice downfield pass to Harris, and Jaden Harrison had one. Even the 6-yard reception that Talik Keaton had was a circus catch. So that's an opportunity maximized because that's one that you could just easily have dropped or have gotten away from you because of the way you had to contort to catch the ball. If they'd had more opportunities, if Cam would have had more time, we might have had more maximization of those opportunities. Number 3 was move the chains. I said that Ali and Cam and Ethan Payne were going to have to get the hard yards. Did not happen. Marshall had only 10 first downs in the entire game. 3 of those came on one drive, and 2 of those came on back-to-back plays, a 14-yard and a 16-yard run by Ethan Payne out of the shadow of our own end zone. And then 2 more came on another drive. Both of those, by the way, both those drives ended in punts. So 5 of your 10 came on 2 drives. The Herd did not move the chains at all effectively. And number 4, I said the Herd had to force at least 2 turnovers and or be +2 in turnover margin. Didn't happen. We forced 1, and we were -1 in turnover margin. The Herd had 2, and JMU had 1. So mixed bag for the Herd. The defensive stuff was really what offset this score in a positive way, but offensively there was just not enough support there, to make this a winnable game for the Herd. Let's move right into grades. What do you got for Cam in this one?
Let me get back over to them. There they are. All right, for Cam, I had a C-. And I know there's going to be a bunch of people online saying, what? He's crazy. Someone decided they wanted to call us or me out for constantly taking up for him. I just see what I see. And there wasn't a whole lot that he could do when it's snapped and the safety blitz is on you as soon as you get the football. Mm-hmm. You can't dance around even if you've got a healthy 2 ankles. We just did not have much that we could do. I've got a C-, and the interception on the underthrow is the big major ding. That was our one chance to go down and score, and I took off a lot of points for that. I thought he played an amazingly gutsy game, was running for his life amongst this pass rush, even on balls that should not have even been thrown. He got away on that scramble for the 36-yarder to Harris and threw a dime while he was on the run after getting out of the pocket. Could have easily just been sacked to start with, could have easily thrown it away and said, let's avoid everything. He threw an absolute dime and hit Harris in stride for 36 yards. And as soon as he released it, he got hit by two people and crushed into the ground. I got a C minus. I don't put him holding the ball on solely his decisions. There was nobody open. So what happens if you throw down the field when they said, just throw the ball, just throw the ball? Okay, well, they had double coverage on a guy. Do you want to get it picked off? Then what's your comment going to be? Well, he shouldn't have thrown the ball. Mm-hmm. You can't have it both ways. I got him for a C minus. It would have been higher if he didn't have that interception, obviously, but it was a pretty key, crucial interception that he threw, and the ball was just underthrown by a few yards when he could have thrown it over top and it been a touchdown.
I agree. I have it slightly better. I gave him a C plus because, and most of it is because of the gutsy performance of playing on two dinged up ankles.
Yeah.
And I was really concerned that he might not be able to go back in the game. You know, when the announcer said now he's favoring the other ankle, I thought, man, this kid is absolutely taken a beating over the last month, and this is a kind of a worst case scenario because now he's even less mobile than he normally would be to try to not just evade a sack, but protect himself, you know, from taking a harder hit. The interception on the underthrown ball is killing me. It's killing me, man. I mean, I know your feet, your ankles are hurt. It might affect your planting and everything, but I know he's got enough arm strength to rip the ball, you know. So I said this before, if that goes to the back corner of the end zone in that area, either I think that was to Pierce. Either that falls in Pierce's breadbasket or it's out of bounds, right?
Yeah.
And Mason didn't do him any favors by kind of standing there and watching that ball get intercepted. I mean, several folks on the social media were like, dude, just go hit the guy and take the offensive pass interference call and keep possession of the ball. And I get that. I get it. But
it almost looked like he didn't see it where it was. You know what I mean? From the replays and everything, it looked like he wasn't looking. He was looking more at the player that was making the interception than where the ball was, is what it looked like to me.
Yeah. I mean, however it was, on TV, it looked like he just watched that happen. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what he's – I'm not in his helmet. I don't know what he sees. But it was a gutsy performance. And one thing I got to tell you, you know, they said at one point when Cam went down, he was coming off the field. They said, well, they took the yellow vest off of McMahon. He's going to warm up. And I thought, okay, maybe we'll see somebody else going in. Is he hurt really bad? Ultimately, he didn't. And you heard Huff in the postgame say he wouldn't let us take him out. And people, again, are just not hearing what is being said. It's not, he doesn't get to trump a team doctor. If the team doctor says you're not going in, you don't go in. But if they go and they say he can play and they go, hey, are you good to go? He goes, yes. Well, then that means he doesn't want to come out. Now, does it? Yeah. So that's what the scenario is. I don't know why, you know, people are looking for a reason, but anybody who thinks they can go is going to want to go and keep playing. Yeah. Just really an all-time gutsy performance. I mean, he was in there in the face of a swarming pass rush. 8 sacks. I don't care if you get 8 sacks put on you. You're not going to have very much success offensively. You're just really not. And when you compound that with your best player, who nobody's going to argue that Rasheen Ali is Marshall's best player on offense, is not in the game, that just compounds things.
Huge difference.
It's not surprising that Marshall didn't have very much offensive success. I think it falls on, like, at some point you just want to see him put something together and be able to get down the field and score some points, even a field goal. And we just didn't see it. And that was frustrating. So I got Cam as a C plus because a lot of it isn't his fault. Really the only thing is for the 4th, 5th, whatever game in a row, he just won't cut it loose for me. Just one time cut it loose for me.
Well, and that was indicative of what we've been talking about with his major drawback right now is just that consistency, you know. And if you're consistently good, I mean, every quarterback would like to be that in the nation. I don't care if you're with Ohio State. I don't care if you're with a Pac-12 team or in one of the systems like Texas Tech used to have. Being consistent 100% of the time is unheard of, you know, and we are looking for a little more consistency out of
Yep.
him. So we are eliminating some of these underthrows or overthrows or whatever for an interception. But it just shows you those two plays that we just talked about happened back to back. He scrambled and avoided a sure sack, threw on the run, through the dime, 36-yarder, got us down into scoring position to I think, the 20, and took a huge double hit after releasing the ball, knowing he's going to get crushed, threw an absolute dime right on the money. And the very next play, he underthrew it by probably 3 to 5 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that consistency, you know?
Yeah. It still went over 55% passing, so it wasn't a terrible performance. But think about that, man. 8 sacks, that's going to do a lot of damage to how the game's going to be called. So
Yeah.
speaking of that, what do you got for this offense as a whole? They
Offense,
they put up 0 points. They are again without their best player, so that alters what you're doing. Only 169 yards gained, and again 8 sacks.
I think we can all agree that the offense failed as far as they didn't put up any points. They had trouble moving the ball. They got 10 first downs. They had 165, 169 yards. But I am adding, instead of where Cam I was taking away, I'm adding to the grade for offense and giving them a D. And the reason is when you start on your 25, 6, and 11, and that's your first half. And then the second half, yeah, the third quarter was much better with 35, 43, 25, 36. Here's your fourth quarter, 3, 10, and 7.
Mm-hmm.
Best of luck as an offense when you start there, because can it be done? Absolutely. Is it extremely hard to? Yes. Facing a top 1 defensive line in the nation and a pretty good front 7 overall, it's damn near impossible to have a good. So I'm going to add a full letter grade, because what more can you do? You're limited on offense already without having Rasheen Ali.
Mm-hmm.
You're limited with a couple of wide receivers that weren't playing, or at least one that wasn't playing. I think maybe a couple of them made it in on special teams and everything into the just wasn't there for the rotation for on the field for offense. But we're pretty dinged up everywhere. Cade Conley comes back. He's been fighting injury. You know, Toby Payne is out. He was probably going to be the starter going into the season. Offensive line, we've had to shuffle some people around. You've seen people come out of games. And to put up that sort of effort, we did not roll over and die. We didn't throw 4 ducks for interceptions. We fought until the very end. There was a decent chance in the fourth quarter that we could have won this game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm giving them a full letter grade because of the circumstances, not because of the performance.
Yeah, you can't tiptoe around not being able to score a point.
Right. Yeah.
Even though James Madison's had the top rated rush defense and your best running back is out. That is a massive mismatch right there. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that, you know? And then you have just an overall swarming, just sweltering pass rush that is relentless all over you. So it just further hinders what you're able to do. But still, at some point, you think, all right, we've got to adjust enough to be able to go score a touchdown. In any game, you have to be able to go score a touchdown, right? A touchdown. Or at least a couple. If you can't score a touchdown, you've got to get down there and be able to score a couple of field goals just to help provide a little, all right, we can move the ball. We can do this. And we didn't see that today, and that's what's really frustrating. I'm going to bow to the fact that it's hard to do that when you start on the 1-1-1, because you got to put together 3 massive drives. You got to put together 75-yard drives just to get into field goal range. Right?
Well, before anything, you've got to play the let's not get safety game. Right. Let's not do a pick 6 or a scoop and score on such a short field.
So I'm saying there were opportunities in the second half to where they could have done that, and we didn't. Mm-hmm. It was turnovers, right? So that's when points are at a premium for you. That can't be the time that you turn the ball over when you're in your best position to try to get some points. So I'm going to give them a C-, but I am also I understand all of the barriers that they were up against in this one, and then just the James Madison punter having a freaking career day just did not help anything, right? So
I've got him at a D, but I mean it could have easily been an F because I mean all these are perspective grades
sure,
on our own scales and everything. Everybody's going to have different, but you know the job of the offense is to get first downs, get yards, and score, and they did not. So
right.
by all intents and purposes, that's a failing grade. But I'm adding to mine and doing a D, so mine's lower than yours.
All right. So what do you got for this defense to this week?
A, and it would have been an A plus had there not been a couple of different situations where there were some poor angles taken on tackles or attempted tackles. I noticed some players in there not saying this was their first major time. I'd have to go back and look and see how many plays they'd been in, but I seem to remember a couple of freshmen that were playing significant minutes for the first time just because we've been dinged up and everything. But not so much out of position, not so much missing tackles, but there were a couple of bad angles that allowed plays to get first downs.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you. If I've been call, if I'm going to call all year long to play disciplined, sound defense, and then we finally see that, and I don't grade it accordingly, then I'm just being
Mm-hmm.
a dick, right?
Yeah,
So this is an A performance without a
yeah.
doubt. They fought for as long as they could fight, and like I said, things started working at the end of the game. But man, I don't know what more you can ask for those guys. If any sort of early in the game offensive success would have happened, even an early field goal, if you go into that game tied in a halftime tie, anything,
Mm-hmm.
then you're likely just feeling different. But those guys
Mm-hmm.
were putting it all out there on the line. They forced eight or seven JMU punts in this game. And then we talked about the tremendous field position that they had starting most of their drives or a lot of their drives. They had a huge interception that thwarted a definite touchdown, and they got a safety. I mean, when's the last time we got a safety? Who knows? Right off the top of their head. I mean, I remember one in 2014 against UAB or something like that, but I don't remember when
What
the last one was.
2019?
Oh, there you go. Still.
They
So
mentioned it during the game when I watched the rewatch.
so they did what they were supposed to do. They stopped a really good offense of James Madison. And I'll tell you this, I got to give credit to McLeod because he went out for a couple of plays and he came back, and I don't know what the hell happened to that kid, but he was so much sharper when he came back in. So credit to him, but this defense gave me everything that I wanted to see, and I didn't even expect to get, a safety. That to me is cooler sometimes than like the scoop and score. I know a scoop and score is more points, but a safety is just one of those things that's
Well,
like
you get the ball back too.
it's like
So
hell yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm giving him an A. I'm giving him an A. What do you got for
speaking
special? Oh, I'm sorry.
speaking of McLeod, real quick, that 53-yard reception that he hit to Brown, I think it was. That is when we had hit him as he was throwing, and that
Mm-hmm.
was the thing to put him out of the game. So the backup comes in, we hold him to a field goal. When he came back in the game, we had him sacked for huge losses on back-to-back plays. He escaped both of them and hit passes that led to good yardage. And then on the third time, we had him in the red zone. He escaped that for a first down with a rush, and that was the lone touchdown on the ground that they got was that McLeod keeper.
Mm-hmm.
I think the next play or two plays later or something like that.
Well, what do you got for special teams this week?
A plus. There is no way to go anything lower than an A plus. You've got a heck of a performance by McConnell from punting. You had a kickoff return for a touchdown. I mean, those things right there are going to put you way up high, but you didn't see penalties. If you did, they were inconsequential. We held them pretty well on their kickoff returns and everything. We put it out of the end zone a lot when we were kicking off. Just all around an amazing performance. And that seemed to come off of last week's worst performance of the year for special teams with penalties and things like that.
And you saw Huff in the post game say, we didn't do anything differently. We didn't call anything differently than the way we had called it against Georgia State.
Yeah.
And folks were, and I was included, just railed on special teams, saying like, well, you did things you absolutely couldn't do. And then they come out and do the same things this week and we're going to praise them. And that
Yeah.
just, you can't, the human element is just what you can't control, right?
Right.
He's talked about it several times already in pressers that I've listened to where he says everybody's trying to be individually great, and I want them to be individually good so that collectively we can be great. Just do your job, and instead of trying to do more than your job, and we will as a team be great. And I think we saw that, right? And I got to say this. John McConnell's going to get screwed out of being special teams player of the week because James Madison's punter landed all of his punts inside the 20. But who was more important to their team? I don't know, because they kept us pinned to where we were on a long field all day long, and McConnell pushed them back as far as he possibly could to keep them from getting set up on short field scores. Yeah, they were on a short field, but they could have easily. What if he shanks one or two of those and they start on like hour 30? You know what I mean? That's a tough call. But I would like to say this. I'm going to take a little bit of credit. I rarely do this, but you remember a couple episodes ago, I said it feels like something is about to happen with Jaden Harrison on these kickoffs.
Oh yeah, it's
I missed
all
it.
year.
I missed it by a week. I thought it might happen in the Georgia State game, and it happened in really such a clutch time. Marshall was 20-3, and then all of a sudden, here goes Jaden Harrison immediately after that to put the Herd right back in the game. What a clutch kickoff return for touchdown. I'm so happy that he got one, and I did see that on the somewhere that it was the first kick return for touchdown by Marshall since Jaden Harrison against FAU, which I also remember that one. So nothing short of an A-plus performance all around for that unit. What do you got for our coaches?
This is the hardest thing for me to always grade, right? Because I'm not a coach and I'm not there at practice. We don't go to practices. We don't know what's said in the locker room unless ESPN shows it, and most of those I have to watch on a rewatch or something because I'm at the game. I put a B, and this is just by as arbitrary as I can think of. I mean, I can see what the players are doing. I can't see what the coaches are doing. But I put a B because we went into this game as an underdog in our own house. We went into this game as an underdog before Rasheen Ali was deemed not going to play. Mm-hmm. Everything had to have changed at that point. I don't know at what point in the week or the day that they knew that he was a no-go, but you have to imagine things would have been a much, much, much different scenario, even as far as game plan goes, right? Then you get to the game and you start on your one. What do you do besides running up the middle? What do you do besides doing a QB sneak under center just to try to get a yard or two so you could not have a bad snap that ends in a touchdown for your opponent? It's just so much of the deck being stacked against you. I'm not sure what differently you could do. Everyone in the stands around me was complaining that, well, all they're doing is running the ball up the middle. It's the same play every time. That's what I kept hearing. It's the same play. It doesn't matter if the formations are totally different, but someone gets a handoff and goes up a hole in the middle instead of trying to take it to the outside. You hear in the stands, that's the same play. Well, no, it's not. But I didn't hear anybody when Ethan Payne went for 14 and 16 on back-to-back and had in the second one he hurdled the guy as part of his 16 yards, picked up 30 yards running it right up the middle. Mm-hmm. I didn't hear anybody when Rockhead was doing that and getting yards saying, well, all we do is run it right up the middle. Hindsight has allowed people to say that was a bad call because it was not the result that you wanted. But you don't go into there and say, hey, let's run a run play for -3 yards. Let's run the -3 yard run play. You don't do that, okay? You're going up against the best defensive line in the nation, statistically. And we're running what we can run. We did try to run around the end. Guess what? It was no gain or negative yards when we did that as well. So what in the hell do you want them to do? We tried to throw. We didn't have time to throw. If we did have time to throw, we had to hold it too long because we had double coverage on our guys. No one was getting separation, and then we were getting sacked. So you either complain that we didn't throw, you complain that we held it too long, you complain that we did throw, but it was to 5 yards and out. Well, that's all you could do because of the time that you had. Overall, man, I'm giving a B because no, we didn't have a great offensive performance, but I don't know that I can fault too much about the actual calls as they were made on the field.
Yep. I'm actually going to give them a B as well, and here's why. Because your coaching grade isn't only an offensive grade. The defense played
Right.
amazingly great.
Amazing. Yeah.
Right? And then you have to bump that up a little bit, even if it's just a partial letter grade, by going, all right, they were without 5 to 7 starters, including the best player on offense, and we were still able to keep this game respectable. And this is far more than respectable. We had talked about it coming in, like James Madison has close wins against good teams, right? A couple points here against Troy, and 1 point win here against Virginia, who just went in and beat number 10 North Carolina at their house. So to 11, it might rub you the wrong way, but what if we are not even at full complement? What if just Rasheen Ali plays? What if J.C. Anderson plays and has significant snaps on defense, to augment what we were able to do on defense? What if just a couple of those guys are in the lineup?
What if on just 2 of those punts that the guy did, that they bounced differently and went in the end zone and we start on our 20 instead of on our 1?
Right. So there's I know I say this to you all the time. You can't just act like these things didn't happen, because they did. But I'm just saying, you were facing a top 25 team, which, by the way, James Madison landed at number 25 this week. They were a top 25 team anyway. We knew they were good. And then you come in without several of your big contributors on offense and defense. I don't know at what point they knew these guys were a no-go, but it doesn't matter. They were trying to do the best that they could do. It was just frustrating as a fan because you were never able to get anything going. You got a couple of drives that lasted, more than 4 plays, and they resulted in punts. But defensively, played lights out. So you have an A+ performance, you have a C- or a D, however you grade it from offense. That puts you right there in that C+ kind of range. And then when you take into account everybody that was missing, you're right there at that B range. So I am 100% okay with giving them the credit that they deserve for the outcome in this one. I mean, 20-9 you don't want to see, but let me say how the game was played on the field. They just kept battling. They kept battling. So you got to give them props to a certain degree. There was just too much stacked against them in this game. It could have been far worse. What if Mike Abraham doesn't get that interception? What if a couple of more big, long chunk plays break loose that we've seen happen all year long? Dude, this one could have been a 31-9 game or something, and it wasn't. So credit to them where credit is due. What do you got for the fans?
C-, and the majority of that is the hospitality that fans as a whole seem to be showing to the James Madison fans that they came. There was a lot of people online on social media from James Madison that were talking about how well they were treated and what they thought of Huntington and the fan base and the Marshall program. So that's a testament to our fans. I know firsthand, we talk about always trying to show herd hospitality over at the ThunderCast tailgates. But I know that those guys from JMU Sound Off and some of their other JMU donors and people that were at our tailgate came by and praised us for putting out the video that we did, not just for them, but for everybody that was a visiting fan on where to go. They said they watched it. They loved it. They thought it was awesome. They wanted JMU Sound Off to do one to invite people to Harrisonburg and let them know where to go. They sought us out to come over to our tailgate, and we showed them hospitality, and they could not have been more complimentary. So that is the majority of it. The negative stuff of the grade almost outweighs all of that because of booing, because of the social media meltdowns and things of the nature. And I'm not like that, man. I mean, I talk about it all the time, but the outcome of a sporting event is just low on the totem pole for me. I mean, I thought the last 2 soccer games, it sucked. I really thought we were going to go undefeated and have this magical season and everything. But guess what? I've got to work. This isn't what I do for a living.
Yeah,
You know,
partial wins don't pay
I,
the mortgage.
I've got to be a dad. You know, I've got stuff going on that it just seems to be like, oh, well, this is not the worst thing that's ever happened to me in the history of things. You know, I want to win every single game. You know, I'm competitive in everything, you know, but I'm never going to boo an athlete. And that's one, or a college athlete, you know, uh, I just don't get it. The booing at the half, I actually wrote this down in my bullet points and everything. The booing at the half was stupid and uncalled for. Never boo the players. People online have said, well, we were booing the play calling or the decision to not try to move the ball down the field at the half when we had a minute 57 seconds left. Well, we did. We did try. And we got a first down. And once we got the first down, we went into tempo to let's start doing it. Then we got a sack and Cam got hurt. So you've got a hurt quarterback with only a minute left, I think, at that point, and you just got a big sack and everything. They had timeouts. Okay, so you throw it down, you give it back to them, let them go down and score. You throw a pick six, a scoop and a score, whatever it is, they get on the board. What would you have thought of the decision for us to try to go for it to be down an additional 3 to 7 points?
Yeah,
Probably wouldn't have thought that was too good.
You'd have thought of whatever it was that made you right. That's
Yeah.
all.
And so we got the ball on the 11. Their defense had been shutting us down for everything except for basically two of those big plays by Payne, the back-to-back runs and everything. 0 plays at that point were in our territory. Everything was in JMU's territory. We were not moving the ball. It was absolutely the right call to not try to go down there and score after we got sacked. We were moving it. We're like, all right, let's see. Let's keep trying to do it. Let's get down for a field goal. When it was obvious that it wasn't going to work, and you're going to sit back there and put them on an even shorter field and let them get a chip shot or a shot at the end zone, no. So one, it was stupid if you're booing the player, and it's stupid if you're booing the play call. But later in the game, when Cam had to take a sack, he had to basically slide because there's nothing he could do. He risked turning it over, even trying to throw it out of bounds. He wasn't for sure that he was out of the tackle box, and he probably wasn't at that time. The smart play was for him when two guys were there and he had nowhere to go, was just to slide down on his butt and take the sack. And people booed then. So tell me that was about the play calling. It wasn't. People were booing Cam. They were booing a player of Marshall who was giving one of the gutsiest performances we've seen from a quarterback out there. I'm not saying it was Byron being carried down on a broken leg, but he was going up against a hellacious pass defense on a bad ankle and doing the best that he could, and he was getting booed. So I can't ever get behind that, and I'm going to call it out every time.
Yeah, it's C minus for me too because this could have been such a great opportunity for Herd fans to put together a really nice A+ grade. You know, the hospitality was unbelievable. I mean, you for 2 days after the game, you I kept seeing just random JMU fans talking about the trip to Huntington was awesome, and the Herd fans are some of the nicest people I have ever come across. And I'm glad that makes me feel good because that means those things are still holding true. It would have only been better if James Madison had brought more fans so more people could have experienced that. Now, 2 years from now, maybe they will because those people are going, man, you've got to go to Huntington. They were amazing. Those fans are great, but booing ain't cool. And if you're a fan that thinks booing the players is cool, you're wrong. And you can tell me, well, I was booing the coaches. Okay, great. Let me tell you how that was perceived. Because you saw one of the most respected players on the Herd roster, Owen Porter, at the post game say, "You're booing us. We're down 3-0 at halftime, and you're booing the quarterback." And he kind of said, "If that's the way you want to be, then don't come back." Now, I'm not sure that was the right thing to say, but the perception was that you were booing the players, not the coaches. So the players themselves said, "All right, well, you're booing us." You don't have the opportunity to go down there and go, no, 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 Owen, don't get it twisted. We were booing the coaches. We love you guys. That's not how it was perceived by them. Don't boo. What? The only time you'll catch me booing at a herd football game is when there is an egregious penalty that they go to review and then they still get wrong. Then I will boo referees or the missed call or whatever. But never a player. Dude, they're busting their asses for you. Coaches are trying everything they can do to get a win for you, right? And so booing, I'm just never going to be okay with. The legendary herd hospitality, I'm 1,000% okay with, because that was an excellent, excellent start to that game day. It could have gotten a lot better if some fan reaction would have taken a breath first. Think before you hit post. Take a breath before you boo. That kind of thing. Overall, though, what do you got for the Thursday night affair?
Overall, I'm going with a D, and I know that sounds bad because we just talked about, having a good tailgate. We talked about having good hospitality. We talked about a great defensive performance and stuff like that. But overall, the entire thing just kind of was soured by the booing. It was soured by having to be there and watch an athlete, a local kid, but a son of Marshall, no matter where he's from, lay on the field for 30 minutes or something. And you're wondering, is this player going to walk again? Is he going to have a good life? The entire thing was just sombering, and the entire thing was disappointing. Again, it's not jumping off the ledge because I don't do that, but the whole thing just at the end just felt like, man, and a lot of that was because of the JJ Roberts thing, which is bigger than football. It was just it was a rough night. I don't mind telling you, I'm not somebody that ever tries to be more macho or whatever. I had a tear roll down my cheek as I'm sitting here because the close family member or friend of the family behind me, just imagining what they're going through, imagining the mother and father getting walked onto the field to go over there, just all the emotions around it, thinking about me as a parent, my reaction and my feelings and everything. It was a scary situation, and it dominated my thoughts all night and the next day. And so glad that he's okay, but that put such a damper on everything that then you've got the loss kind of tacked onto it. Whole thing was a D.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it would have been more like a B minus or a B or something if we didn't have the JJ thing. But just overall, it was such an emotional night. I'd say with JJ laying on the field.
Yeah, I'm not even taking that into account because that's just something that's so uh, profound that it affects things in and of itself, right? But for me, this was after I've had a few days to think about it and digest and look and revisit and reflect. It's not as bad as I thought it was, and I don't want to lose games, but I think this one was bad for me because that we had lost 2 games that we could have won. And then I thought, okay, this is a really good team. This is an undefeated team that we can beat, and it just changes everything for us, right? We're right back to like, yeah, we let those 2 slip away, but we just dethroned James Madison. They're not undefeated anymore, and the narrative change that has, and what that does positivity wise for people talking about the herd. The herd just beat James Madison again, 2 years in a row. So I think I let the emotion slide in a little bit. The initial knee jerk reaction just slide in a little bit, and I don't know. I'm not going to call it an overreaction, but I think I just would have been better off to just let it marinate for a day. You know, um, it was just such a big opportunity that we just couldn't. And all these things line up. Ali's out and 8 sacks, and Cam's dinged up with both ankles, and we couldn't do anything offensively, and it was just thing after thing after thing, and I was like, damn it, man, damn, what the hell? And at the end, it just kind of overflowed, and I didn't say anything that I regret or anything. It was just like I probably had a worse reaction than I should have had. But I want to put something in perspective, and somebody pointed this out on social media, and tweeted or quoted it by saying the yin and yang of sports, right? Because Marshall was 4-0 just a couple of weeks ago in football. They were undefeated in soccer just a couple of matches ago in soccer, and now Marshall's 4-3 in football. We've dropped 2 straight in soccer. That's the yin and yang of sports. We're recording, and it's October 23rd right now. I don't know when folks are going to listen to it, but it's Monday, October 23rd. Exactly 1 month ago, September 23rd, Marshall beats Virginia Tech at home and beats UCF in a number 1 versus number 3 soccer match at the Vet. And we were saying, man, this is an all-time great weekend. 30 days later, 1 month later, Marshall's on 3 straight losses in football, a 2-match losing streak against WVU and UK in soccer, and that's the ups and downs, right? That's the ups and downs. And what that's done is it's humbled me a little bit, because I was starting to edge too far to one side, I think. And I'm reminded of a saying by my good friend Stephen Moffat. I know you know him. For folks that don't know him, he's a host of a Western Kentucky podcast called Topper Talk. I really like Stephen. He's been a friend for a long, long time. He says all the time, you're never as good as your biggest win, and you're never as bad as your worst loss. So think about that. What's our worst loss? What is Marshall's worst loss? Again, undefeated top 25 James Madison team? On the road in a shootout against NC State? Or in a sloppy, penalty-infested game against Georgia State that also the Herd kind of let slip away? Which of those 3 to you is the worst? I would tend to think that it's probably the Georgia State game because we had we could have controlled more. But are any of them truly that terrible? It's not a 56-point drubbing at the hands of Akron at home.
Yeah.
You remember?
That was bad.
So that's what I mean. I should have waited a day and just let it sink in and reflected a little bit before I just got pissed. And I just wanted to share that, because now you have to ask yourself, how do you react as a fan? How do you react? Do you go, well, I'm done. I'm done with this team. They can't win. This ain't it. This guy's not it. This coach this, that coach that, blah, 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 blah. Or do you go, okay, yeah, it ain't ideal. 4-3 sucks. We were 4-3, by the way, through 7 games last year. Did you know? Yeah. And then what happened? Magical run in late October and an undefeated November. Is that going to be hard to do this year? Hell yes, it's going to be hard to do this year. But I'm just saying, how are you going to react? Are you going to be like, well, I'm done. I'm not going back. Okay. If that's what you want to do, if you think that's what'll get this team over the hump, then okay, you do that. Or are you going to rally around and go, it ain't that bad. Losses suck. They freaking suck. But it ain't that bad. You get some guys healthy again. You string together a couple wins. You go down and get a win against Coastal Carolina. That's a step in the right direction. Then you compound that with a win in Boone against App State. Now all of a sudden, what are you? Right? You're 6-3, bowl eligible. Still got a couple games on the schedule. You're right back in the hunt. I did make one mistake of saying that Marshall's SBC title hopes are on, and I use the term life support. We played on a Thursday. Everybody else didn't play till freaking Saturday. And some teams lost that I thought would win, and some teams won that I thought would lose. And it really put a huge shakeup in the standings. I was premature in saying that. Shouldn't have said that. Is it going to be an uphill battle? Yeah. Georgia State's in the driver's seat. But you just never know who's going to win in the SBC East every single week. So I got humbled a little bit, and I'm okay with it because I'm the type of fan that can take that medicine and, kind of refocus. So if you're that type of fan too, don't be afraid in admitting you were wrong. I was wrong, and I'm saying it into a microphone for literally thousands of people to listen to, and I'm okay with it, right? I was wrong. I shouldn't have reacted the way I did. I'm still not okay with our fans booing, but I was wrong. Personally, I was wrong the way I reacted, and I didn't even do anything that bad. I should have just let things marinate and simmer down and reflected for a couple days. You guys do what you want to do, but that's my 2 cents. Russ, if you've got anything else, let me have it. Otherwise, take us out of here.
Well, I'll just say that I will be at Coastal this weekend. We are also going down to Boone the following weekend, and then we'll be at the home game after that, and then we'll miss the South Alabama game just because of logistics. I can't get down there, and then we're going to be back here for another game at home. I'm going to go to every single game that I can. I'll be riding with the team, whether they're 0-12 or they're 12-0. I just love Marshall. And I wish that everyone else would be. And, we talk. You're in the same boat this week, but most week you're right there with me. We just need to do a better job as a fan base to say, I love watching the team play, not I love watching the team win. We got spoiled like hell in the 90s. Spoiled like hell. And it's not the 90s. Football is different. We're in different conferences. Everything about it is different. And the game changed with NIL. The game changed with the transfer portal. The game changed with different offenses and defenses and things. It is not the same game. So let's just take a breath. And I don't know about you, but I'm going to be watching and I'm going to be going to whatever I can. So no matter whether you see us at the Joan, whether you see us at the camp, or if you see us down at Coastal fighting those beach chickens, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd, it's the ThunderCast. We'll have your preview for Coastal Carolina here in a couple of days. And don't forget, herdbricks.com. You got less than a week to secure your brick. We'll see you in a couple of days.